All right, and we are now live. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 3. I hope you guys are enjoying the videos thus far. Today, I am interviewing a mental training consultant who leads his own company called Wilson Mental Performance Consulting, and he is also a professor at Waterloo in the Department of Kinesiology. His name is Dr. Wade Wilson. So, hello, Dr. Wilson. It's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Kevin. Happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to chat and share about my experiences as a lecturer and a mental performance consultant. So yeah, excited to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the interview. So we'll start off with the first question. Can you start us off a little bit with the basics and tell us a little bit about what a mental training consultant does?
Yeah, absolutely. Mental training consultant is a person who supports athletes, teams, coaches, parents in helping athletes, performers. Really, it's not just sports we're thinking about here. We're talking about any performance context. We support the performers to perform at the top of their abilities on a consistent basis, whether that's through goal setting or analyzing self-talk or using imagery or designing more effective routines, those types of things. So there's a variety of skills and techniques that we use to help performers deal with their anxieties, manage their emotions, set effective goals so they can be performing at the top of their level on a consistent basis.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about the types of cases you might see within your clients and some of the problems you go about fixing to sort of help them with their mental performance?
Absolutely. So my clients will range from anywhere from 8, 9, 10 years old on the younger end. I don't work with a whole lot of 8, 9, or 10-year-olds, but there are some exceptions. Gifted little athletes and performers. So all the way up to adult professional athletes as well, semi-professional, amateur, Olympic hopefuls. I even work with some athletes that are in the Paralympics and athletes with disabilities and those populations as well. Deal with a lot of mental blocks, just in terms of maybe executing a move or a routine. So some more of those acute type things to some more long-term type self-belief and confidence type things as well. It might take a little bit more time to get to a point where the athlete's comfortable.
Sure, yeah. That sounds like it helps out a lot of people, which is great. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the educational requirements that are needed to become a mental training consultant and sort of how your journey was like in that process?
Yeah, for sure. To be honest, I never envisioned myself being a mental training consultant back when I finished high school. I was never one of those people that maybe came from a long line of veterinarians or doctors or lawyers in the family and knew they were going to go off to law school or vet school or medical school. I was always interested in sports and athletics. I was always interested in the mind too, and how how kind of our thoughts impact our behaviors and our emotions and those types of things, and how some athletes can, or some people can just seem to be clutch performers and some don't and choke sometimes in those moments. So I was always an athlete, played hockey was our main sport. My brother and I both ended up playing at the junior tier 2 levels, and was always interested in I was interested in sports psychology. I just didn't know it at the time. It was kind of one of those things in sports psychology hadn't really broken into the market yet and carved out kind of its niche. It's still working on that as well, but as more professional teams, athletes, and performers are relying on mental training consultants and sports psychologists, it's becoming more seen more of a regular part of a holistic training model. But I was going to go into physical education and then a recruiter. I was going from Laurentian University, actually this one right here. Laurentian University came to my high school and said they were going to be starting the sports psychology, Bachelor's of Arts honors in sports psychology, and I thought that was really cool. So as soon as I got to Laurentian that fall, I transferred into the sports psych program, which was really nice. There was only 8 of us to start, so that kind of kicked it off there. And one of my very lucky to have the mentor Wendy Jerome as our program coordinator. She designed the program. Many people might not know, but her husband was Harry Jerome, the Canadian track star. from a while back. So she had tremendous experience and worked at Olympics and all kinds of different games, high level games. So she was really passionate about it, got us into it. Of the 8 from that first cohort, I think 4 of us are doing this type of work right now. So we were inspired by our time at Laurentian, and then from there I went to the University of Windsor for my master's degree. That one right there, and I got to work with Dr. Krista Chandler, who was amazing and got me into the applied aspect of it. That's where I really started to see the divide between research and applied kind of thing. So I was able to accumulate a lot of hours to put towards my Canadian Sports Psychology Association membership. So that's kind of like our governing body, so to speak, the Canadian Sports Psychology Association. And if you go onto that website, just type in Google Canadian Sports Psychology Association and click on membership, it'll pull up everything that you need to become a member, professional members. So there's a minimum master's degree. There's various educational course requirements around the sports sciences and psychology and the ethics and research and those types of things. So there's a minimum master's degree and meeting all the educational requirements on the association's webpage, along with submitting 400 practical hours as well. So that's working with teams, observing, working with your supervisor, various categories to break down those hours to accumulate the 400. And so I completed all of that, had my supervisor, which Dr. Chandler, my master's supervisor, supervised my hours for the CSPA and sent in the package. And ever since 2008, I've been a professional member with the association and been providing mental training services for teams, coaches, athletes, and performers, from a variety of sports and activities. So if you're looking for good information, go to the Canadian Sports Psychology Association. That's our Canadian governing body. There's the Association of Applied Sports Psychology. It's pretty much parallel to the Canadian Sports Psychology, just in the States kind of thing. So you'll notice that their requirements are very similar to what we have here. So if you're interested in sports psychology and what it might be able to do for you moving forward and the education around, check out the Canadian Sports Psychology Association membership page. And if you're curious about anything on there, you can do a breakdown by province to see who are professional members, and feel free to reach out to anybody that's in your area. Every province across the country has mental performance consultants associated with the CSPA.
Yeah, sounds like a long journey, but it definitely sounds like it's worth it. That's great. So you mentioned sports psychology a couple of times there. I was wondering if you'd be able to highlight some of the difference between someone who works in the field of psychology versus someone who works in sports psychology versus what you do. Can you highlight some of the differences in like the educational requirements, what the scope of practice is, and things?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, and it's a common misconception. Like, we see the term sports psychology or sports psychologist in the news, on the TSN, in any publication. It's always, well, I work with a sports psychologist, and sometimes that title is a bit misleading. In order for somebody to use the term legally, a sports psychologist, they have to be a registered psychologist with their province or state first, and then specialize with the athlete population. And usually these sports psychologists, or sports psychiatrists, where you have an MD first and then specialize with the mind, or the psychologist where you're licensed with your province or state. That's when you're able to deal with more mental health disorders, kind of around depressions and anxieties and eating disorders, and more of those clinical type issues that athletes might present. So that's why we can't use the term sports psychologist, because majority of us are not registered psychologists with our province or state, and we can't diagnose and treat. Whereas with the title mental performance consultant, most consultants will have a PhD or working towards their PhD, but we're not licensed as a psychologist would be. So we can handle anything that's in our scope around performances, around confidence and self-esteem issues and self-talk issues, and the imagery and the goal setting and those types of things. So that's where we support. When we might notice or feel that there's something else at play that might be a bit more mental health issues, then we would have to refer to a psychologist, kind of thing. So that's kind of the main difference. So sometimes when I see the term sports psychologist in the media or in the news, and it's attached to a name, I'll look that person up to see, what their credentials are, because we don't want to be misleading. It's illegal to mislead or use the wrong title, kind of thing. So we have to be very careful with that. And then with the distinction, like I've actually had to call up newspapers after an article's been written and say, can you retract that and put my title as this? I remember mentioning that during the interview process. So so that's kind of the main difference with the sports psychologist title and the mental performance consultant. So the education track would be very similar: bachelor's, BA or BSc, master's, and then PhD or the clinical training kind of thing. So timeline pretty similar, but just in the populations that we work with, there's distinct different lines in the sand, so to speak.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I think there's definitely some misconceptions about it. Like even for me, like that was really enlightening to understand what the differences are, which I think is important to know. Can you tell me about what some of the most rewarding aspects of your job are as a mental training consultant, and what you sort of get out of it on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, absolutely. I enjoy just meeting new clients and their families and their coaches. I enjoy when I get to observe what we've been working on translates into competition or into performance, and I get to witness that. Or I get the phone call afterwards or the email that says, "Guess what? This just happened," and I'm just so proud that the athlete, and they're always like, "Oh, you helped me do this," and I was like, "I was just part of it. You put it into you utilized it. You took this information and made it work for you," and that's what I'm really proud to see, and what I like to be a part of. So I'd have to say that's the most rewarding aspect, especially working with the younger athlete population, and really enjoy working with the younger athletes, because they're fearless in a lot of ways. They'll try, they'll try what you suggested. They'll give it, they're like, "Oh, I did this, but I did it this way. Is that okay?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And it works for you. And I enjoy that self-discovery that they're going on as well. So, and I get to be a part of it. So I feel very fortunate in that sense as well. I'll also mention, I do work with a lot of youth athletes, but that I also do have training in child and youth work as well. Many years ago, I worked as a child and youth worker and an autism support assistant as well. And then I guess I should also mention, what adds to my educational credentials is that I have certificates in cognitive behavior therapy as well. And that's what the applied sports psychology is largely built around, that cognitive behavior model of the Socratic questioning and the dialogue and building rapport with your athletes as well. So, but the most enjoyable part is seeing my clients succeed, seeing my clients feel proud of their accomplishments, and the personal growth that they get to embark on is very rewarding.
There's definitely there's just so many ways that you can help others depending on what field of work you go into. So that's great. Shifting to the other side of the spectrum, can you tell me about what the most difficult aspect of your job is?
Yeah, most difficult. There's a lot of little things. I wouldn't say there's one huge most difficult thing that that you dread, but with every role, every job, every dream job, there's going to be little things that we have to do to keep the machine running, so to speak. But sometimes it's the balance between my full-time job, and I do the consulting on a kind of a part-time basis. Travel was a big thing as well, because I like the in-person work. So I would be traveling 3-4 nights a week around the KW Guelph area, sometimes even into Hamilton. But now that I've learned Zoom and a bunch of other online platforms, the one-on-one thing I think is going to be a lot easier. But hopefully when sports open back up and programming opens back up, it's been the most difficult thing right now is the amount of time and the uncertainty that my athletes and clients are going through. So I'm helping them deal with that. But before this, the pandemic hit, it was mostly the travel and the scheduling, because it's part-time and I'm so small right now. I'm the admin, I'm the scheduler, the finance person, wearing all the hats. So just juggling it can you get in at 11 p.m. one night and you're like, oh, I got to send that invoice, or I got to send that quote. And you're like, do I want to do it tonight, or do I push it to tomorrow? So just those little things and that's just day-to-day business operations, I think. But they can pile up a little bit.
Definitely. With every job, there's always going to be cons and stuff. So yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So you touched on your ability to have two jobs at the same time. So we'll sort of go into that now. Can you tell me a little bit about your teaching experience as a professor at Waterloo and sort of how it relates to what you do as a mental training consultant as well?
Yeah, I consider myself pretty fortunate that things have been able to play out this way to where we are right now. So I mentioned I've been offering the mental performance consulting services since about 2008. I started my PhD in 2010, and then I started teaching in 2013. Before I had finished my PhD, I was far enough along that I was able to get some teaching experience. So I finished that in 2014, 2015. But so I was teaching, and then I was offering the mental performance stuff as well. It was just a matter of scheduling, making sure that everything would fit together properly. But I enjoy the teaching. I enjoy being a lecturer. That's my official job title at the University of Waterloo, is a lecturer. I teach 6 courses a year, sometimes 7, depending on a seminar. So that's my main day job. And actually, both of these roles play nicely into each other, because I teach courses in sports psychology and applied sports psychology and foundations of a healthy lifestyle. And I get to design courses around, like the psychology of injury and things like that. So the teaching and supervision that I do at the university and the mental training, they match very nice, because I get to play off both of them. I can use in class live examples, from what I do in the field, and vice versa, kind of thing. So I'm fortunate that they play so well with one another, that they're not conflicting really in any way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm glad that worked out, because honestly, it's hard to have two jobs at the same time and be able to manage it all and still have a well-balanced work-life balance. Can you tell me a little bit about what a typical workday might look like for you, having to balance both of these jobs? And obviously, don't worry about the whole coronavirus situation. That's probably not your typical workday. So just what your typical workday would look like after this whole quarantine would be over.
Yeah. So usually Monday through Friday, I'd be at the university, be at my office, depending on if I'm there every day. I'm the type of person that likes to be in their office. I like to be on campus as well. I feel more productive there. So I, usually, anywhere from 8:30 till 4 or 5 o'clock, depending on, I taught a night class last term, or the winter term. So, Monday nights I was there till 9 o'clock, but that's just the way the teaching schedule plays out. So usually at the university till 4 or 5 o'clock, and then I'd leave right from there. And if I had, I'd go to my first client. I'd schedule them. I try to schedule them on the same, 2 or 3 on the same night. So I would be able, and then of course the coordination with that, I'd go from one to the other. So long days, but that wasn't every day. That might be 3 out of the days of the week, kind of thing. So that's why I try to do that. So I have 1 or 2 nights off a week that I can spend with my family and just relax. But about 3 days a week, there was probably about 10, 12, 14-hour days, 16-hour days going on. But that's part of the role, kind of thing. So yeah, that'd be a typical day.
That sounds like a good day. I mean, as long as you're enjoying it and you're good with the time you wake up and the time you go to bed, it's good.
Yeah.
I think people with multiple interests, they like to have their hands in more than one field as they grow up. I think I'm like that too. So for example, professors often do research and they also do teaching rather than just one alone. At the same time, there's people who prefer to have just one job and then focus all of their time and efforts towards that.
Mm-hmm.
Based on your experiences, can you tell me a little about some of the advantages and disadvantages of having 2 jobs at the same time, being your company and you're teaching at Waterloo at the same time? So.
Yeah, I'll start with the disadvantage. Like the main disadvantage is that you got to be careful you're not spreading yourself too thin. because when you start to spread yourself too thin, and you're not taking care of yourself first, you can't be any good for anybody else, kind of thing. You can't give from an empty cup, right? So sleep, nutrition, hydration, all of, physical activity. I make sure that those are incorporated into my daily and weekly life, because those are very, very important, because if I can't fulfill that, then I'm no good to anybody, kind of thing. So I guess that would be the one disadvantage, so to speak, is that you got to be very careful with your schedule, and sometimes you got to be very selfish with your time. Advantages, though, like I mentioned, both of these roles fit very nicely together, with the teaching, on campus, to my consulting in the field. And I work with some of the varsity athletes on campus as well. So that's why I like to be there too. I get athletes dropping in and chatting more often than not. But I'm very thankful that they fit so well together. And so the advantage is I get to utilize both content in both areas. And then I also like to do some writing as well. I've self-published a couple books that I use in class for my applied sports psychology course. So yeah, everything's kind of, when I'm doing something in one, it's benefiting in the other realm as well.
For sure, yeah. And I totally agree when you say you can't help others until you first help yourself, or at least take care of yourself, right? Which is super. Can you tell me a little bit about why you chose to also teach as a professor while, in addition, managing your company at the same time? Like, what was sort of your passion towards teaching?
I've always enjoyed the teaching aspect, the presentation aspect. I enjoy the research too. Like, it's not to say that I don't do any research. I still do a little bit of research, but it's in the form of when I supervise undergraduate honors thesis. So I get to do research through my students' interests, which is really cool. So I get to look at a lot of very cool things in the realm of sport and exercise psychology. But I kind of just naturally kind of move towards the teaching. Like, I like the research, but I kind of like the research on my own schedule, kind of thing. Or, if that'd be an interesting project, let me put in an ethics application and see what we can do. And if we can combine that with an undergraduate honors thesis, then awesome, kind of thing. So I don't have a rock star, $1 million research grant or research program, which is fine by me, but that's just me. So, I like the research, but I enjoy being in the classroom. I like being in the classroom. I like delivering the content. I like listening and hearing from my students, their experiences with it. And then when we get to combine their experiences with the theories and concepts, and then we get to see that, oh, that's why that happened, or that's why this happened, or that could be why, I felt this during this time, kind of thing. So it's, I just enjoy being in the classroom and learning with and learning through my students as well. Like, I learn so much every course. It's a new group of students and different experiences, and the dialogues and the discussions are, always different. So I just like being in the classroom.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to have multiple interests, and at the same time, teaching is great because although your main job is to educate others, you're also educating yourself, which is really awesome. All right, so my last question for you is, what advice would you want to give someone who wants to pursue the same field of work as you as a career choice, and any other general for being successful in that field?
Yeah, I guess one big thing would be just always be curious, stay curious all the time. Ask the questions, if you're curious, but look it up, find the papers, find the textbooks, just stay curious, stay hungry if something's there and you're not sure why and you want to know, be curious about it. Aside from that, reach out. Like, if you're interested in sport psychology, sport and exercise psychology, or performance psychology, a good place to start would be at the Canadian Sports Psychology Association website. Check out what's on there. Check out some of the blogs, the articles. Look through the members. Maybe you'll recognize a name. Reach out to anybody. Our contact information is up there for people to reach out to us. If I've had cold random emails all the time, and then it's like, well, I'm here and I'd like to speak with somebody or talk to somebody a bit more close to home. And be like, well, I'll look up the on the website and send them the link with all the BC people kind of thing. But yeah, feel free to, get on that website, reach out. Majority of the people that are listed on there are going to be more than helpful to refer, or to, set up a Zoom or a Skype call to chat and answer your questions. Majority of us are very, very friendly people, and we're more than happy to help out. So, but also too, one cautionary point. I get a lot of people that ask me, like, well, I want to work with professional athletes. That seems to be like the light that we're all kind of drawn towards, the allure of working with professional athletes. And it's great. I think anybody in our field would jump at the chance to, work with a professional team, so to speak, or an Olympic team or something like that. But we have to be realistic at the same time. Like, to get your start in this, you're gonna need to start with the amateur athletes, local youth elite performers, those types of things, and start to build your way up with that as well. Like, there's also, like, we have the educational component of the consulting, but there's also the art. Like, there's an art to it as well, in how you build your conversation skills, how you build rapport with your clients, how you interact with their parents and their coaches, right? How you feel confident in suggesting and designing a mental training program for these athletes. So it's you have to be realistic, and you're learning as well when you're starting out. So the first piece of advice would be realistic. Like, nobody's going to jump into working with a professional team right away. We all have to build our own style, and that's where the consulting becomes more of an art as opposed to the science, so to speak. Again, look to the associations for advice. The association web pages are a great spot to just, even on the homepage, to see what's current, what's going on. So check out the Canadian Sports Psychology Association, check out the Association of Applied Sports Psychology, check out the International Society of Sports Psychology, or just type in Google, just say Sports Psychology Associations. Check out the Canadian the Canadian Psychology Association. The APA Division 47 is dedicated all to sports psychology. So and a lot of these are going to be research as well, but it's good information, and maybe even might be able to garner a list of people you'd like to reach out to. And if people don't get back to you right away, that's okay. Wait a week, wait 10 days, send a follow-up. If they don't get back, move on, kind of thing. So to the next person you'd like to talk to. But just had an interesting experience yesterday. Somebody that I've read a lot of their work and read a lot of their publications, just agreed to work on a project with them. It was just happened out of the blue. It was really cool. So I was even in the, kind of the starstruck moment there. But you reach out, make yourself available. Be willing to provide support on any little job that might need to be done. If somebody's working on a project and they need to format their list of references, it's there's lots of things that can be done. But again, don't be afraid to reach out. What's the worst that anyone's going to say? No, don't ever email me again. Okay, go on to the next one. Also, there's been some recent talk around the educational direction too, and there's a couple of camps. It's, if you want, you can go mainstream psychology and still work with athletes, or you can continue to go more of the sport and physical education type realm as well. Again, it's going to be in what you want to do, research or working with people. Sometimes you might, and it's tough, just you can't see the future, but depending on what you want to do with your career. I've ran into some obstacles where certifications and things like that, where I just didn't have it, and then I sit there and like, well, I wish I should have made that choice 5 years ago or whatever. But there's something said to go the mainstream psychology route as well, but still keep within the sport and performance realm. But to each their own on that one, kind of thing. they're both long roads of the education, but they're definitely worth it. And there's lots of interesting things that can be done along the way. I was able to combine my CSPA candidate hours with an independent study project and consult at the same time under the supervision. So there's lots of interesting ways and lots of things that you can get involved with. But again, it's the first thing is to be realistic, because right away you're not going to jump into a professional sport organization or an Olympic team or anything like that. I'm not saying that it won't happen, because there are probabilities, but it's few and far between somebody jumping right into that type of high profile role, so to speak. So yeah, be realistic, look to the associations for advice, reach out. Anyone that's watching this and wants to reach out to me, by all means, like Kevin, you can put my information up, share my webpage. I'd be happy to field any type of questions around career direction on, sports psychology. And, I have, my contacts as well, and my connections that, I can be happy to advise and help and suggest for anyone interested in this career path. It's rewarding, but it's also a lot of work. I'm just going to say that right off the bat.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Wilson. So that does conclude our interview. I 100% agree. You should remain curious. Keep yourself open to new ideas. That's how you find career paths that you genuinely enjoy. Once again, we really thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Once again, everyone, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I will catch you all in the next video, and I will also leave Dr. Wilson's contact information in the link below, as he has gladly wanted to help out other people who are looking into this field. So thanks for being here with us, and catch you on the next video.
Sounds good. Yeah, reach out. Happy to do a follow-up. If you get questions from your viewers and your followers, and there's more directed type questions around sport and exercise psychology, happy to do this again. This was a lot of fun. And thanks to you, Kevin, and also Francis for sending me the email to set this up. So I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Wilson.